Hey everyone, it's Mythmaker. Today I'm going to share with you a tutorial on the Roland JDXA digital analog crossover synth. I wanted to make my own tutorial because I couldn't really find a good one online, and this synth has a lot going for it. There are some confusing things about it. It has a pretty steep learning curve, and I just wanted to point out the features that I really like about it. It's not going to be an in-depth how to use the whole thing. It's just going to point out the features that are pretty unique to it. That I use all the time, and that can be a little confusing for someone who hasn't spent very much time with it. So let's jump in. So here's the synth, and over there, that is my Marist Polymoon effects pedal coming out of the analog dry output. I'll tell you all about that later. And the first thing you might notice about this synth is that it might not look like your JDXA. As you can see, it has a nice matte black finish with white writing. And everybody complained about the shiny, glossy finish with the red writing. Well, you can go to Roland's customer support online, send them an email, and get yourself one of these matte black finishes. Faceplates to put on. It's just like a sticker. And you can get it for the JDXI too. It's completely free. They don't even charge you for shipping. You don't have to prove that you even own the thing. They'll just ship it to you. And I highly recommend doing that if you own one of these, because it makes a world of difference. Now, just to comment on the JDXA, I think it's amazing. It gets a bad rap online. If you look up reviews on the JDXA, there are a lot of haters out there. And it just reminds me of when the Juno came out back in 89, 90. Everyone was complaining that it sounded like a toy, it was a novelty, it's too difficult to get any good sounds out of it, it's hard to use, all that sort of thing. And then 15 years later you have, Daft Punk and Boards of Canada playing Junos, and now you can sell your Juno for twice what you bought it for back in the 90s. So I think this synth is suffering from the same fate, and it deserves better because it is an instant classic. Now, the things that I like about it is that it has 4 analog parts and 4 digital parts, and they all get sent through analog parameters, analog filters, and digital effects. So that opens up a lot of possibilities. Now, the cool thing here, the 4 analog parts can either be 4 independent monophonic parts. Whichever part is lit up red is a part that will play when you press a key. So, if it's red, it's going to play. If it's turned off, it's not going to play. And whatever's blue is what you're going to edit. Like when you change the waveform, change the filter cutoff, the resonance, pulse width, whatever you edit is only going to be edited for the parts that are blue. And you can do 2 at a time, 2 parts at a time, all 4 parts at a time. But you can only edit the analog parts separately from the digital parts. You can't edit those at the same time. It's just one or the other. See? Because they're totally different sound engines, so that makes sense. But you can set these all up to be different MIDI channels for a live performance. So that's really cool. You can have this like channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, whatever, and then you can have your sequencer playing to those different MIDI channels, and you can use this thing as like 8 separate synthesizers. I mean, come on, it's 8 synths in one. It's amazing. I love it. Now, what I usually do is I use the analog as in polyphonic mode. You just press this poly button, and now you can see you only have 1 part. It uses all 4 voices, so it can either be 4 monophonic parts or 1 polyphonic part on the analog side. And I can only edit, it's only 1 part now. And that's what I like to do because I just like the way the polyphonic analog stuff sounds on this thing. Now, there are only 4 voices on the analog side, which a lot of people complain about. The digital side has 192 voices, so that kind of makes up for it a little bit, I suppose if you have 193 fingers, you might be disappointed by that. Anyway, this thing's like an orchestra. It's a workhorse, and I use it to play live performances because I use it as 5 synthesizers in one. I got 4 digital parts and 1 analog part, and we're good to go. Now, one of the cool features that I want to talk about is down here in this little menu. You Got to do a lot of menu diving on this thing, unfortunately, which is another drawback, but if you have the patience to do it, it's excellent. I spent like 2 years learning this thing. I've had this synth for about 3 years, and 2 of those years have been hardcore dedicated learning. So one of my favorite features here, I'm just going to edit the one analog polyphonic part to show you. You click the menu button and you scroll over to the part edit and you hit enter. And then you scroll over until you get to the scale. Now you can change the temperament of the scale, microtuning. So it's default equal temperament. You have just major intonation, just minor, Pythagorean, which is really nice, Kernberger, which is really nice, mean tone, and Werkmeister, and then Arabic. Those are the ones that come preloaded. And you can have a custom scale. And then here I have my custom scale because you can't save them, unfortunately. So I printed them. I printed my favorite scale on a label maker and just stuck it right on there because I got to, every time I make a patch, I have to type this in. And this is Rudolf Steiner's scale of 12/5, which was developed in the early 20th century. It's quite similar to the Pythagorean and the Kernberger scales. As you can see, these are just a few cents off from the natural, or from the equal temperament rather, and it's played the same as equal temperament. So, you know, you just go and you start typing them in. You know, the C is -6 and the C sharp is -4 cents and so on and so forth until you finish your 12 notes. So you can only do 12 note scales. You can't make like a 17 note raga or anything like that. It only microtunes to 12 note octaves. That's a bit of a drawback, but hey, it's got microtuning. Most synths don't, so that's cool no matter what. Now, another important thing that people get confused about, because the manual for the Roland JD-XA, like all good manuals, tells you absolutely nothing. So, in order to think about the effects, you need to think in terms of parts and master effects. Now, they're T effects here. They're called T effects. I don't know what this T stands for. It doesn't say it in the manual. And you can set them to like one of like, there's like 100 different effects, bit crushers and delays and reverbs and all sorts of stuff. And these will affect every part, whether it's turned on blue or not, whether you're choosing to edit it or not. These effects, the T effects and the master reverb and the master delay, will affect every single part in the same way. So I pretty much don't even use them. I will use the reverb though, the master reverb, because that is the only effect that has a send, a per part send. So I can edit a part that I don't want reverb, and I can click part edit, hit enter, and go over until you see reverb send. It's on default 45, so I can get it down to 0 if I don't want any reverb, or I can make it go up to, I think, 127 if I want a hell of a lot of reverb. So the master reverb can be changed per part, or at least the wet dry can be changed per part. Now, I like to use all the different effects. I like to use part effects. This is the M effects. You see that switch, M effects is on. Now that is the per part effects. That is where you got to do some menu diving. Back over here. Now this is whatever is blue is being affected by the M effects. So these are your per part effects. You can go to your menu and make sure that you only have what you want turned blue to be affected. And you can scroll on over to your effects edit. Hit enter. The M effects switch is on, and then here you go. You select your M effects. You got an equalizer. You have so many different things. So many different effects. A whole bunch of different flangers, rotary speakers, like 4 different choruses, overdrive, distortion, compressor, delays, beat stutters and beat slicers, a bunch of different delay effects, multi-tap, analog style, reverse delay, bit crushers, and here you have some combination effects. You got like distortion and flanger, distortion and delay, you know, amp simulators and phasers, all kinds of cool stuff going on here. Chorus and delay, that's a popular one. So a few multi-effects as well. And you can only use one of these MFX per part. So it's a little bit limited in that regard. And then when you choose like an effect that you like let's say you like the rotary speaker, then you can click the arrows here, and now you can choose parameters within that effect. You see you have like your speed of how fast it rotates and all that sort of cool stuff. The delay effects also have loads of cool features. So that is really important to understand. MFX are your part effects. The master effects affect everything all at once. So if you're doing like what I do, where you play this thing live and you're replacing a whole bunch of synths with just this thing, playing it like 5 to 8 synthesizers, you're pretty much only going to be using your MFX per part. Oh, I forgot to mention, the digital parts here, they have 3 oscillators apiece. These are each oscillators, and you can choose of one of like 450 different waveforms, a whole bunch of different waveforms. They have all the old analog waveforms like the supersaw, except of course they're digital samples, but they still sound great. And you can choose like how it feels. The analog feel is one of the choices when you go into your menu here, and you go to your part edit. You can scroll way the hell over. A lot of menu diving. You go to your tone common section, and in your tone common section you will have analog feel. Now this is only for the digital part. The analog part obviously doesn't have an analog feel option, and it goes from 0 to 127. And what this does, it basically modulates the pitch. It's basically just like a pitch modulator over time. And it's like setting a random LFO to a little bit of the pitch. And it just gives it more of an analog vibe. And I use that. I usually set the analog feel to like 10, somewhere between 10 and 30 on the digital parts. Any more than that, and you'll sound like Boards of Canada, which is awesome. But you don't want to sound like someone else. So that's really neat. Really takes care of the lack of polyphony on the analog side there. Now, the most important thing that, for me, aside from microtuning, is the 2 separate outputs that are in the back. Oh, you're not going to be able to see it. You have a digital output and an analog output. Now, sorry, not a digital output, it's an all output. So you have your left-right channels coming out for your all output, and then you have one TRS cable for the analog dry output. That is like really cool, because the analog dry output comes out before the equalizer, because there's a per part equalizer too, so a whole bunch of equalizers in here. Comes out before the equalizer and before the effects. So you can send your analog dry to your own custom effects if you don't want to use the onboard effects. And that's what I do. And then that analog dry goes into my mixer down here, the MX1. So I got my analog dry in these 2 channels here. And my all output is in this USB channel, because the MX1 can take USB audio from other Roland synths. Not from any other synth, only from Roland synths. So I have my all output coming out of the USB, and my analog output coming out of the analog dry, so I can use my own effects on it. Now there's a problem with that, because the analog signal still comes out of the master output. So you're coming out both of the analog dry output and the master output, and that's a serious problem. So what I do, which is my workaround, this is not a nice workaround, but it's the only one I found, and if someone else has found a better one, let me know. So I click the part, edit, I go to the effects edit. Now I'm just affecting my analog output, my analog part. The switch is on, I put it on the equalizer, then I go to the parameters and I just minimize each parametric stop to -15, which is the maximum. So I'm basically like trying to mute everything using an equalizer. And so my MFX effect slot is using an equalizer. Now that's done. And the cool thing is that I now have another equalizer, because there's just that there's also a per part equalizer. So I turn that equalizer on, and I do the same thing again. So I'm basically using 2 parametric equalizers to get all the major frequency ranges down. This works as getting it down by minus 30 decibels, which is essentially muting it. So that is my workaround to make sure that the analog signal does not come out of the master output, which is, in this case, my USB. In other people's cases will be the 2 1/4-inch jacks. Same thing. Because the analog dry comes out before all of the effects and the EQ. So I still have my full analog signal coming out of the analog dry, which I can then affect here, and none of that analog signal is coming out of my digital signal path. Now this has only got my digital parts coming out of it. So I figured that'd be useful for some people to know, because you can, have this as a 2-channel, 5-part synth, and that is just amazing for live performances. Instead of carrying around 5 to 8 synthesizers with you, you can carry 1 and really just get everything done that you need to get done. So that is my little tutorial of all the interesting things that I like about this synth that I use all the time. And you should get one, because I feel lonely. I feel like I'm the only person on the planet with a freaking JDXA, because everybody hates them. Been using it for 3 years. Take it from me, it's a great synth. So share this video if you got any Roland enthusiasts out there who want to get more out of this synth. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.